All right, welcome to the GBNO, Get Better Not Older podcast, number 17. We're flying right through these. So why should you watch the GBNO show? Because we are a couple of kind of smart older people with a combined over 50 years of experience, and we kind of know some stuff. So hopefully we can help you get better, not older. Dr. Rob Jones. This is my awesome wife, Shannon, who is a dietitian with many, many, many years of experience. Right, honey?
Thank you for dating me.
Okay, so what are we focusing on today? All things, well, not all things supplementation, but some of our favorites. I get asked this question a lot online and from patients. Dr. Rob, what supplements should I take? And I always say it depends, and it depends on your genetics, depends on your labs, but there are some basics that we can talk about that really most people should be taking kind of regardless of labs. So
yeah, these are our favorites.
Yes.
These are the ones that we probably recommend the most, of which that we're going to talk about. We do get into brands because that does make a difference.
Yeah.
And it's an industry that is not regulated.
Right. And what does that mean? That means the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, which I don't know how much we can trust them anyways because of all the things, carbohydrates and fats and everything else that everybody's talking about lately, but they don't regulate supplements. So you could literally, you and I could say, hey, we're going to make supplements this weekend and sell them. And we can take a bunch of powder, stuff it into some little pills, bottle it and package it to make it look really cool and sell it. And we may not, we're honest people, we would never do this, but unfortunately, there are some dishonest folks out there and they're selling stuff that they say is good for you. Maybe it's not good for you. Maybe the percentages aren't right. So that's why we need third-party regulators, right?
Yeah, so let's first back up a second and talk about that, like what that word means, supplement.
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to get into the statistics on how you know if what you're purchasing is actually what you're getting.
Right.
But I wanted to back up a minute and talk about like really what that word means. It was never meant to replace anything.
Right.
So everything that we are recommending today is in addition to everything we recommend, which is a healthy diet and exercise, et cetera. The other thing that's important to say, too, is it is very important for you to check with your doctor who knows your medical history before starting any supplementation, because there are, like recently I was recommending that my dad start some magnesium, and he was having some side effects, and it was interacting with another medication that he's taking. So that can happen. And so just remember, the word supplementation is meant to be supplemental to a healthy diet, and you also need to make sure that your health practitioner knows what you're taking and checks. A lot of times pharmacists can also check for any drug-drug interactions or just making sure that that's what's good for you. Like, for instance, for a lot of medications, there's a particular enzyme in your liver that's pretty congested. And then it also breaks down some foods and supplements too. So you can get some interactions with that. So it's just good to know. So anyway, so to get back to what your point is about the third-party testing, I wanted to get into a few other things first before we jump into the actual different supplements that we're recommending. And that is talking about the absorption and bioavailability, and then giving some statistics. Let's start with the statistics.
Can I say something first really quick? And again, this is to inform the people who listen. This is by no means a recommendation because we're not able through a podcast to recommend. This is just what we take and what we recommend to our patients because we know their history. And again, I can't say enough. Don't just look what we have presented and say, okay, I'm going to take that. Get some labs done. Go talk to your healthcare practitioner. Ask them about this stuff. But the things that we are presenting today are probably some of the most important in our mind and stuff that we take ourselves.
And I would say, as far as the brands that we are recommending, I'm not going to expect all these health practitioners to actually know as much as we do about them because it's something that we really hone in on and look into. However, it's just more, should I be taking magnesium? Sure, no problems. That's when this information would be applicable. Okay, so I'm going to give some statistics here. Recent studies have raised significant concerns about the accuracy of ingredient labeling of dietary supplements. Sports supplements, specifically, they analyzed 57 different sports supplements and found that 89% had discrepancy between their labels and actual contents.
Okay, so this goes back to what I was talking about, how there's non-regulation. So you think you're taking something and you're maybe not getting enough of it, or you're not getting very much of it at all.
Yeah, this is what that says. It says notably 40% lacked detectable amounts of the ingredient listed. So in other words, you're wasting your money.
Yeah.
And only 11% contained ingredient quantities within the 10% of what was claimed on the label.
Wow.
So again, these labels are kind of somewhat a joke unless you do your proper research,
right,
because they can put anything on it. Nobody's regulating what they can do. This is not an FDA label where there are labeling laws.
Right.
Immune health supplements, which are very popular, they evaluated 30 of them, and 13 products had accurate labels of the 30.
Remember that thing we used to take back in the mid-2000s, cold and flu season? What was it called? It's called, we used to take it before we went on the plane. We used to take it.
Airborne.
Wasn't that one of them that I remember reading something recently? Yeah, I don't want to, okay, maybe Airborne's great, but I just remember scrolling through something recently, and I don't know if it was Airborne or a competitor, but it was some of the claims that were being made and some of the ingredient lists weren't there. But again,
yeah, it said
not saying specifically
those
it's Airborne.
30, 17 had inaccuracies, 13 were missing listed ingredients, and 9 contained undeclared substances. That's scary.
That is very scary.
So what we're talking about here is making sure that the supplements that you take are a vetted brand. And what that means is they have third-party testing.
Right.
So what that means is said company has turned their product over to a third-party company that has anything to do with the company. They're paying this company to say, hey, analyze and test our product and make sure that what we are saying on the label matches what's in the actual product.
Right. So it's literally an auditor. Okay. It's like a government, the government hires an auditor to come in and look at the books. Okay. This is like this is my fish oil supplement. You can see these labels right here are third-party testers that literally go into the labs and take samples and test to make sure they have purity, to make sure they have accuracy and information like you're talking about. So if you're going to buy a supplement, really look at to see if you pick up that supplement and you don't see a third-party testing label on it, then you might want to think about putting that down and finding something different. Because
I was going to say a popular third-party tester is NSF. A lot get that, so that's one that people can look for. We're going to every single one that we talk about today is third-party tested, which we wouldn't be mentioning if it were not. But we're not calling anyone out in particular, but just to say, if you're going to spend your money and take the time to get supplements, just make sure that you are buying one that has done their due diligence and ensuring and saying, hey, we've taken that step, extra step to make sure that what you're purchasing is actually what's going in your body.
Absolutely.
So that's first and foremost. The other thing is bioavailability and absorption. So a lot of the times, one of the first things we're going to talk about is magnesium. And the interesting thing is there's all different forms of magnesium, and each of them have different absorption rates. It's really important to know, okay, so if you're going to take it, how much of it is actually getting to the cell? How much is your body absorbing? If you're eating a source of food that has magnesium, your body, your physiology 100% knows what to do with that, absorbs it readily. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But when we have isolated, fragmented vitamins that are not coming from a food source, There are some that are better absorbed and what we call more bioavailable, meaning how much ends up in the blood, how much is actually makes it past the various barriers that are, our physiology has in place that actually gets at a cellular level and makes a difference. We're going to talk about that today too. Talk about types that are better absorption and bioavailability. Mm-hmm. Okay?
I'm okay with it. Yes.
Okay. So magnesium, I would say, is one of my top supplements that I recommend.
Yeah.
It's been fairly life-changing for a lot of friends, family, patients, and I've been recommending it for years. Mm-hmm. Sadly, the statistics are that only about 50% of Americans have a good magnesium rate in their body. That's mostly because we're eating a predominantly ultra-processed food diet. So supplementation is needed for that very reason. We as a whole we don't have a lot of this mineral anymore. Our soils are not as rich as they used to be, and it's one of those that's important to supplement pretty much across the board. So factors like stress, high caffeine intake, those can make a difference on how much you're absorbing those from your actual food, which makes it another reason why it's good to supplement. But we're going to get into the benefits of magnesium. I've said numerous times, and if anybody's ever listened to any of my nutrition libraries, they hear me say that, magnesium is responsible for about 600 different enzymatic processes in your body. So it's one of those that almost dabbles in everything to do with our physiology. That is why it's so important. So I'm going to go through that today because I think it's important for people to know. Mm-hmm. I'd say the first one that comes to mind for me, and this is pretty much a big one for you too, and probably why a lot of people ask you, and that is it supports muscle and nerve function. Mm-hmm. It's one of those, like, for instance, people who tell me that they have restless legs at night. It's one of the first things my brain goes to is getting them on a magnesium supplementation.
Yeah, it's been used for years as an anxiolytic by psychologists who are into alternative means of therapy, not just putting people on meds, but meaning helping with anxiety because that has a calming effect. And then also it's a muscle relaxant if it's taken at the right dose.
And antispasmodic, is that what you would call it? It's like it. I always remember when we dissected frogs and we were having to create tetany. Do you remember when you had to make the twitch?
Yeah.
When people always tell me that they've been twitching or their eyes twitching or they're having twitching, magnesium always comes to mind for me on that too.
Yeah.
So supporting muscle and nerve function is a big one. Regulation of heart. Talk about one of your most important muscles.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So people don't really think of the heart as a muscle, but it's definitely is a muscle.
Myocardium is technically heart muscle. So it's a smooth muscle. You can't control it. Just really quick for any dorks out there like me, smooth muscle is muscle you can't think about and contract. It's autonomic, meaning your heart pumps without you thinking about it. And skeletal muscle is the muscle you can look at and make a bicep curl, make a bicep ball or whatever. That's the big difference. But both use magnesium, and in absence thereof, can you imagine what happens? Stiff muscles, lack of functioning in the smooth muscle system, which is just to contract and relax based on your heartbeat. So super, super important supplement. That's
what I was going to say is relaxing of blood vessels.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's pretty important.
Well, there's, we were told for years and years, salt is the main issue, right? Oh yeah, if you have high blood pressure, if you're hypertensive, reduce your salt, reduce your salt, reduce your salt. Well, come to find out, if you were taking table salt that was stripped of all the proper minerals, guess what was happening? You were getting lack of magnesium and lack of other minerals. So now there's some recommendations to actually take magnesium for hypertension or high blood pressure, and it can actually help calm the stiffness in the muscle wall, because what happens is, you have these muscles inside the arteries that constrict and stay tight. If they stay like that, well, think about it. The pressure builds inside the vessel wall. So if you have magnesium in the system, it can help that system relax, just like a muscle relaxing. Now the blood pressure will go down because there's not this drive to get fluid through this small little lumen or this small little opening, right? It opens up, relaxes. Now the blood can flow through and your blood pressure drops. Pretty amazing.
And it's a pretty important mineral for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so bone health is the next one, and it actually helps with the formation of bone.
Right.
That's pretty important. I mean, I think everybody's brain automatically goes to calcium, and they don't really think of magnesium's role in bone health. But do you want to explain that more, Mr. Bone?
So we'll get into this later with vitamin D3 and K2, but we have this process in our bones called osteoblastic activity and osteoclastic activity. The bones are constantly turning over. Okay, if you take a bone, let's say this bottle is the inside of your bone, or is your bone. Inside of your bone, you have this matrix that looks kind of like a really thick spider web. The osteoblasts are what kind of make the bone. Think of like an explosion, okay? An explosion of bone. Osteoclasts are what break away the bone. In order to build up that bone, you have to get calcium from your diet and from the blood into the bone. And without magnesium and some other supplements, you can't take that calcium and put it into the bone to propagate the building of the bone. So now what do we have? We have situations where people become osteopenic, osteoporotic. So it's...
Tell you where we live, you can't look anywhere where somebody is not bent over, and it's
unbelievable.
It's an epidemic.
It's a
for
complete...
entire generation.
Yeah, it's a complete failure of the medical system.
Yeah,
because instead of going, we need to look at the source of the problem, they go, oh, you've got some osteopenia, we better get you on Fosamax or whatever the bone building drug they give you, instead of going, hey, let's look at your diet and let's look at your mineral status and maybe get you moving. I mean, these are simple solutions, but again, it's like turning around a super tanker. It's not going to happen, in 1 degree. It's going to take some time to mitigate the problem. But anyways, we digress. Go ahead.
Well, the other one is energy production. I have so many people who complain of lack of energy, and I don't think magnesium is coming to their mind on that. So basically, the way we get energy in the cell is that ATP. You and I talk about that all the time. And this is the carrier for that ATP in the cell is that magnesium. So without it, your energy levels could drop, et cetera. So fatigue, all of that, feeling of brain fog, stamina, all of that stuff could be related to magnesium.
Right, absolutely.
As you already mentioned, mood regulation. So anxiety, depression, insomnia, all of those are affected by magnesium. They regulate our neurotransmitters predominantly, which are in charge of all of that, and that's why. Helps with...
If I can interrupt, neurotransmitters are just it's like the telephone between nerves, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay. It's
the communication.
It's the communication. Neurotransmitters tell one nerve to connect to another nerve, and it serves as that telephone line.
And if you don't have enough magnesium to, that broken telephone that we always talk about, that nobody wants that. I can't even tell you how many people complain of not sleeping well. I mean, it's one of the first things that I think of. Not only, for depression or anxiety, I think of B vitamins a lot, but I also always think of magnesium and vitamin D. Those are big ones, and we'll get to those. Yeah. The other one, which is a big one, and this is a lot of people are talking about diabetes and insulin resistance and everything to do with blood sugar. And magnesium plays a role in insulin function in helping to control blood sugar. We've explained this numerous times, but when you eat anything, you turn it to sugar in your blood, and you can't have sugar in your blood. you need the sugar in your cells so they can create energy and do what they're supposed to do. And magnesium is just one of those minerals that is needed to help with that insulin function and glucose metabolism. So a big one when we talk about disease. Anti-inflammatory effects, something that we talk a lot of in our GBNO lifestyle, is every single disease is tied to inflammation in some way, not just acute inflammation. We're talking chronic inflammation. And so that magnesium has that natural anti-inflammatory property for that chronic. It's not, acute is good, but we're talking for that chronic, ongoing inflammation.
When you say acute is good, meaning acute inflammation from if you have an ankle sprain, we need inflammation because that's how we heal. So that's the problem with, put it in my world. Somebody comes in with an acute ankle or knee sprain. They always say to me, okay, so should I do ice and ibuprofen? And that has been the recommendation forever. But the problem with both of those, specifically ibuprofen, is if you really shut off the cascade of inflammation, you get incomplete healing, and you actually block the signaling for collagen matrix build in the tissues that you've disrupted, whether it's a ligament or a tendon. Collagen is the building block of ligaments and tendons. Shut that off with ibuprofen. Now, guess what? You get incomplete healing. You may be out of pain faster, but the tissue didn't heal the way it needs to heal. So you're just at risk for further injury, basically.
These are things we're not talking about.
Right, exactly.
And sadly, over-the-counter drugs, whether, you and I have talked about this a lot with the acid, sleep, all of it is just not a good, habit that everybody's getting into, is that every time they're in pain, the first thing they're grabbing is ibuprofen, not really stopping to think physiologically, is this what I should be doing to help the healing process?
Right, absolutely. When it could be just something simple as a certain type of movement to mitigate the pain.
Yeah.
Which, again, we're digressing into a whole different podcast, but keep going. Lots of magnesium stuff. Go.
Digestive health. Magnesium is, everybody always would giggle at me because back when I would work in critical care or in the medical floor in the hospital, I would ask if you're having bowel movements. If what's going in is coming out, then that means pretty much everything's good in between. It's an indicator of pretty good health. And magnesium plays a huge role in that process of healthy bowel movements. So that's why all of a sudden I got everybody's attention. All I have to mention is you're not going to have constipation, and then everybody
What was that
cues in.
Product you used to recommend? Was it magnesium?
Nature's Calm.
Nature's Calm, yeah. It's good because it can unbind you, but just be careful. You don't take too much of it because...
That's right. We're going to talk about a brand that I really love, and for a very specific reason. It's not that Nature's Calm is not a good brand. It's just that it's only one type of magnesium.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And then finally, improve sleep. This is a big one. I see it in my patients all the time. It's funny. A lot of people take their magnesium earlier in the day, and then I always switch their magnesium to at bedtime for this particular reason. So all really big. That took us quite a while to explain all the important reasons why we need magnesium.
And that part of the sleep is muscle relaxation, neurotransmitter communication, like we talked about before. So, and it's easy. There's no side effect to it. Other than, like you said, with your dad, you take too much, it can give you the Trotskys a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you, again, check with your doctor if you're doing some other, pharmaceuticals, but it's pretty life-changing when you get it right.
Right, exactly. And this is where it gets confusing because there are a ton of different forms of magnesium, and everybody is telling you that their form is what you need.
Right.
So I wanted to clarify that today, kind of talk at a high level what each of the forms are known for doing. Mm-hmm. I could spend a lot of time on each of these, but I'm going to just give a summary of the ones that make the biggest difference for the biggest reasons most people are taking them.
Okay.
So for anxiety, stress, and sleep, magnesium glycinate or threonate is your best type. For constipation relief, magnesium citrate or oxide. Now, oxide is one of those that's not great, it doesn't have great absorption. So I would stick more with the citrate for that particular reason. For energy and muscle pain, magnesium malate. For heart health, magnesium taurate. For brain health, magnesium threonate. And for general supplementation, because of its bioavailability, there's that word again. So the way it's absorbed and how much ends up in at a cellular level, magnesium glycinate across the board is known as being one of the best absorbed. Okay. So that's just a quick summary. But now I have a really easy solution for you. If you're confused and don't know which one you need and you're going, well, wow, I have all of these and I really need to address all of those and I don't want to take 7 different forms of magnesium. I have one supplement that I love and it's called Magnesium Breakthrough, and it includes all 7 in a very highly absorbable form.
Yeah. And I would say, I wouldn't just say, well, I sleep great, so I probably don't need the glycinate, or I have good muscle tone, so I don't need the malate. It's just, might as well just prop up every single bit of what we need, because you're not always going to get it in your diet. And we both take Magnesium Breakthrough before we go to bed every night. And I mean, I sleep like a rock anyways, but I sleep like 10 rocks now that I've been taking it the last few months.
Well, and again, it's just that ability for all of that to be firing on all cylinders. Again, the word supplement, it's just almost bridging the gap into any shortcomings you had in that day. Maybe it's not consistent, but again, covering your bases, you're better off there.
Yeah.
In the show notes, I have links to these products, easy to find, and I feel like they're very affordable. Magnesium Breakthrough has been a game changer for a lot of my patients.
Yeah.
Like I would say probably the biggest improvements in health outcomes out of that one supplement.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to move beyond magnesium. And I'm going to talk about a supplement that probably a lot of people haven't heard of, and that is Juice Plus. A lot of people think that Juice Plus is a juice, and it's really not. I know that back when I first heard of it, I was like, I don't drink juice. That was like one of the first things that I thought to myself is, well, I don't really drink juice. I just eat the real food, right? The real fruit. It was not until I really started researching the product that it is probably on my very top list, maybe even before the magnesium. And I think once I'm finished going through this, and of course you've been taking it for a long time too, so you will chime in as well.
Yeah.
But Juice Plus has been around for, over 25 years. But it's one of those products that they, and we're going to talk about this. It's a subscription-based type supplement. Yeah. So it's not like you can just go on Amazon or go in the grocery store and get it. So that is one of the reasons probably why not a lot of people have heard of it.
Yeah, so I remember a patient of mine specifically back in Kansas that recommended Juice Plus to me in like 2004 or something like that. And I remember taking it because I thought, it's not a bad idea. And then I kind of found out it was like a, what do you call it? Because you can't buy it in the store. So what's the system of purchase of Juice Plus? It's a membership, like you said, right?
Yeah, subscription-based.
And I remember thinking,
monthly subscription.
Yeah, I remember thinking, this is a little dicey. Come on. But then you started telling me about how doesn't it have like 30 studies on cardiovascular health?
Yeah, we're going to get into all of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will say anecdotally, I was on it for years and years and years. And then for about a year and a half while I was doing my little carnivore experiment, and we did a podcast on this, so you can refer back to it. My body did not like me being on the carnivore diet because of polymorphisms and some of my genetic coding. I went off Juice Plus, and we're getting ready to redo my labs here in the next month, which we'll present on the podcast. But I got back on Juice Plus, and I mean, is it the cure-all, end-all, be-all, cure-all for all things Rob Jones needs? I don't know, but it was part of the puzzle that before we moved to Florida in 2022, my labs were perfect. Yeah. Like our doctor, who we loved back in Lawrence, shout out to Lori Cordova, she basically said to me when I got my labs done before we moved here, she's like, all right, Mr. Squeaky Clean, good luck down in Florida. And then, I go on that diet, and that carnivore diet, and we know what happened. All hell broke loose. And again, I'm not knocking the carnivore diet. It may be great for some people, but genetically, another podcast. But I'm just saying, I believe highly in this stuff because I genetically had some, because the stuff I didn't realize from getting the genetic markers when I had the carnivore diet issue. I had, in my 20s, I had some kind of cholesterol and blood sugar issues, and that's just part of my genetic makeup, even though I was athletic and healthy. But Juice Plus over the years helped me correct that, because prior to doing all this online stuff that we started in 2023, if you recall back in Kansas, I took Juice Plus and I basically took fish oils, and that was about it. And my labs were near perfect.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're going to say, I'm going to present today why that is. And this is really what kind of separates Juice Plus from other products. There's actually numerous things that does. The reason why a product like Juice Plus is needed is because of some very sad statistics, in that 1 out of 10 people are actually eating the number of servings of fruits and vegetables a day that they should be. Okay. So everybody who knows me is constantly hearing me talk about nutrient density and the importance of nourishing at a cellular level to prevent disease, to stay a healthy weight, all of the things.
You've been saying happy cells for years and years.
Yes.
Happy cells.
What your cells want are all these fruits and vegetables, and it's the very thing that nobody's doing. And we spend all of this time on all of this talk about how to reverse everything, when we would just do the right thing on the front end. There wouldn't be a need for all this, right? So let me tell you why I believe everybody should be taking Juice Plus. I think it is an investment in your health to bridge the gaps in what you are not doing. It is your insurance policy, because you are not getting the number of fruits and vegetables you should be getting, nor the variety that you need in a day.
Is it the insurance policy or insurance policy?
That is enough, Dr. Jones. Let me talk about one of the biggest things that differentiates this particular supplement from any others today. This actually has a food label.
Okay.
So do you know what that means? It is literally regulated by the FDA, because it has determined that it's actual food in these capsules. It's not an isolated fragmented vitamin. It's not synthetic. It's actually food. So you don't even need third-party testing, although they have it, but you don't need it because it is FDA regulated, which is unlike any really other supplement. So that is one of the first things. The other thing is you are getting 30 fruits and vegetables in these capsules. So the variety is amazing. And I always talk about food synergy. And that is when you have that variety of nutrients in one place at one time, it turns these vitamins and minerals into like powerful, superhuman cellular level power to help you fight disease. They like to all be together. If you were to tell me that you eat a plate of broccoli every single day and that's the only vegetables you're getting, I would say kudos to you. However, I'd like to see you get more variety, because I know that you're missing out on all these others. Well, the rat race that we are living today, people are not taking the time to get in this variety of plant foods every single day, much less every single week or every single month, year, what have you. We are definitely, as a society, not getting the fruits and vegetables and plant foods that our bodies need to maintain our health. So this is your insurance policy for your health, to bridging the gap into anything you didn't get right that day. If you're taking these, when I talk bioavailability, the coolest thing about this product is not only can I say that it's bioavailable, I can prove it, because they have so many studies that show that they've actually studied how it gets to the cellular level. So we're going to go through that.
Yeah.
They have over 48 peer-reviewed scientific studies and 33 clinical studies.
It's pretty awesome.
And I'm going to go through it because that's how important it is. Everybody has heard us talk about microbiome. Everybody has heard about us tie most diseases to your ability to have a good microbiome and keep a good microbiome. Well, these little guys in here are the things your microbiome loves. These are the foods that your microbiome feeds off of. And so it's just feeding that and improving your health that way too.
Right.
And there is even a study on that. Okay, so let's get into the health benefits.
Let's.
So immune function. There are 3 different studies for immune function, and this was the different studies conducted on 4 different populations. Healthcare professionals that are working with like sick patients, young law students, elderly population, and athletic men. And what those combined results studies showed is that the capsules support a normal function of immune system and support upper respiratory health. So that is 3 different studies showing those results, that it improves immune function. So
the outcomes were what? Less time to heal from said virus?
I didn't get in. I mean, they have the studies. They have them cited on, like it says, I have 3 different studies right here, Journal of Nutrition in 2007, and people can look them up, and it's on their website.
Okay. And peer-reviewed, for what some people may not know what that means, is if you're going to be in a really good clinical periodical like Journal of Nutrition, Journal of the American Medical Association, Spine, any of those peer-reviewed, meaning they have people on a board that look at all the dozens and upon dozens of studies that have been actually submitted to them, and they read them over and make sure the science isn't garbage. So if you have a study that gets into a peer-reviewed journal, you can most times rest assured that it's a solid piece of scientific data.
Yeah, it's definitely the most rigorous.
Yes.
It is definitely known to be the most rigorous type of clinical study. Okay, so there are 15 different studies on bioavailability, or actually 20 scientific papers published over 25 years. All of them, because obviously if you're doing a study on something, you have to prove that what's in here is actually getting and making the difference. So all of these have shown that what you're taking in is actually making a difference at a cellular level.
Can I describe bioavailability to people so they understand it?
Let's do that.
Okay. I want you to think of, this is going to sound a little raunchy, but from your mouth to your butthole. Okay.
What?
Well, hear me out.
Okay.
Okay. Very simple terms. From your mouth to your butthole.
Oh, mouth to your... I was like, okay, where are we going here?
This just, you're making it weird. Just let it roll, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to say it one more time. From your mouth to your butthole. Just think of it as one big tube, okay? Starts in your stomach. Well, starts in your mouth. You chew. The food goes into your stomach. The hydrochloric acid breaks it down. Then it gets put into your small intestine. Now, the small intestine is where the vast majority of food and nutrients are absorbed. So think of a straw with little hairs inside the straw, and those little hairs absorb the nutrients and they pull them into your vasculature, which is your blood system, okay? And then as that vasculature, that blood system goes to your organs, goes to your muscles, goes to your brain, it takes those nutrients and basically transports them into the cells of said destination, whether it's heart, whether it's muscle, liver, kidney, whatever muscle. And if it's readily bioavailable, that process I just described is very easy for the nutrients to get through that process. If it's not bioavailable, it's going mouth, stomach, small intestine, large intestine. You're either pooping it out or peeing it out through your kidneys. So bioavailability is super important because it just means you can absorb it and use it.
I have one.
Yeah.
Bioavailability measures how much of an ingested substance makes it into your bloodstream and cells.
I like mouth to butthole better.
Okay.
That was too mature for me.
Okay. Okay, moving on.
Yes.
Antioxidant protection. Everything we've ever talked about disease, we have talked about the needing to make sure that your cells do not oxidize. So this is antioxidant. And there are 15 studies on this, and it's basically increased levels of key antioxidants in the bloodstream after taking Juice Plus capsules, which protect lipids and proteins from oxidation.
And what
this is various populations, including exercises, obese women, smokers, even people who smoked, which is pretty amazing.
And again, oxidization, think of taking a bite out of an apple, leaving it out in the open air. The inside of the apple gets brown. That's oxidizing. You don't want that because we know oxidization in the body can lead to inflammatory processes and inevitably cancer, cancerous processes. So this is anti that, basically.
7 different studies, their combined results showed a decreased level of biomarkers of inflammation. We just talked about that.
Right. And we know through previous podcasts, and you can't look anywhere now with regard to health without seeing everything is inflammatory. Seed oils and just everything we're doing is pro-inflammatory. So you need natural anti-inflammatory processes.
This one was cool. DNA and nutrigenomics. So combined results from 6 studies showed that it protects DNA from oxidation.
Mm-hmm.
That's
huge.
Yeah. And it actually alters, like it's that nutrigenomics, like that gene disruption. So it can take, like if bad genes were passed on, you can actually, as you expose those cells to healthier conditions, they can adapt into something better. And that's what this is showing.
Right. And that's when we talk about telomere change, which is, part of your DNA structure. If you have fraying of your telomeres, it's not good. It leads to disease. So if you have telomere change from positive benefits from these, you're going to interrupt a lot of the cycles that will process through, that will cause aging and other diseases, whether it be cardiovascular, whether it be neurological, whatever. So you can offset a lot of that.
Talk about at its foundation. That's
right.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Okay. This was a cool one. Cognitive function in young adults. I really like this. Mm-hmm. And not only something to mention about Juice Plus, one thing I think is really cool because they're invested in kids getting on this product at a younger age. For every adult that is on the product, you can sign a child up for free product anywhere from the age 4 to 21. And I think that's amazing.
And we do that with our kids, and they're just chews, basically. They just kind of...
Well, they can do capsules if they want to, but they do have gummies for the younger ages. But what this showed is for young adults, Juice Plus capsules improve key cognitive processes, including working memory, selective attention, processing speed, and executive function.
That's pretty huge, considering how much our kids are getting barraged by everything opposite to that because of social media and screens and everything else.
More need to control their cognitive function or to improve their cognitive function. A couple skin studies, which everybody's spending all this money on all these products. How about we just affect it at a cellular level? Mm-hmm. What this showed is that it increased microcirculation, which is the actual delivery of essential nutrients and oxygen to the cells. Mm-hmm. Doesn't get any more foundational than that. And it helped with skin hydration, thickness, density of middle-aged women. So that's a big one.
Huge.
Gum health. We all know that health starts in the mouth, and that's part of where your microbiome is. So they showed that even people with periodontal disease improved their periodontal disease with the capsules. Mm-hmm. And then the cardiovascular health. And I actually had to reach back out to a friend who is really well, knows Juice Plus really well. Because I remember back when I did some speaking for them, I presented data on cardiovascular disease, and I couldn't remember the exact. So she sent me, so I'm going to look. It was a cool slide. So what it showed is this: in healthy volunteers, 4 weeks of daily supplementation with Juice Plus blunts the detrimental effects of a high-fat meal and arterial vasodilation. So just taking Juice Plus and having Juice Plus on board when you've consumed a high-fat meal, it helps decrease the detrimental effect of that high-fat meal.
Interesting.
Pretty interesting.
So it's almost like a direct anti-inflammatory.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So this was really cool. 2 to 10 hours, significant rise in variety of polyphenols. Those are plant chemicals that help at a cellular level. 7 to 28 days, key nutrients found in the bloodstream. So this is all these studies show how quickly it's making a difference in your health. It's not one of those that you have to take for months to get the benefits from it.
Absolutely.
So for cardiovascular health, there were 8 studies that combined results showed it helped maintain healthy blood pressure, total cholesterol, LDL, homocysteine levels, which that's that inflammatory marker, all within a healthy range. So that's significant. Okay, we're getting there.
So at this point, you can gather that we trust Juice Plus.
Yeah. Lung function, metabolic health, so improvement in blood pressure, blood sugar, abdominal fat, cholesterol, triglycerides. We're hitting on all the big ones here. Athletic performance.
What's the athletic? Is that delayed times to fatigue?
So it attenuated increase in several markers of oxidative stress following physical exercise. So it that oxidative stress that comes from exercising intensely, it helped, what would you call, mediate the inflammation or oxidative stress caused from that.
Okay.
And then finally, gut health. And this one, again, this particular study in 2021 showed that Juice Plus positively impacted gut microbiome. So that means this is getting to the cells. It's getting in your gut, and it's help feeding those good bacteria. And that's because it's real food. The cool thing about how it's processed is they actually go to small farms, and it's like beyond organic. They really hone in on making sure that this is like beyond organic standards that they, make these small farmers follow. And they literally, at some of the farms, they even freeze dry them. What they do is they wait until the fruits and vegetables are picked at the right time for the peak nutrient density. A lot of the times when you're buying fruits and vegetables for the store, they have to pick them so far in advance because it's going to be several weeks before it gets to you.
So they're ripening off of the vine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they call it flash freeze at the farm so that they are taking them when they're the most nutrient dense, turning it into a powder, and then putting it into the capsules.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So it's literally just fruits and vegetables, and there's nothing else in there.
And plant foods, some other plant foods. But it's
cool.
Pretty amazing. And talk about, so let's talk about the elephant in the room with Juice Plus, and then we're going to get on to creatine.
Okay.
I would say one of the things that people have said is a negative against them is because it is what's called multi-level marketing. That's how they have chosen to sell the product.
Yeah.
And here is what I would say about that. I don't understand how that's any different than how everybody else is. They're doing word of mouth as their sales model.
Yeah.
What is the difference between people being influencers or whatever they are on Amazon? What are those people called?
Yeah, just
affiliates. Being an affiliate on Amazon where they're recommending a product and making money off of that.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that's any different.
It's just,
so I kind of get a little tired of that being a perceived negative when you're talking about such a superior brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now, Dr. Rob,
my turn.
You're going to talk about creatine.
I love to talk.
Yes, you do.
So, okay, I first learned about creatine in 1993 or 4 from one of my favorite professors in undergrad, Dr. Roger Kelton. I hope he's still on the planet. If you're listening to this, shout out. Still one of my favorite professors of all time 30 years ago. He talked about this and omega-3s way before it became a huge thing. I started doing creatine when I was in my 20s because I wanted to build muscle. And it was like a bodybuilder's, athlete's type of supplement. Okay.
I feel like that's how it always originated.
Right.
Yeah.
Stop interrupting me.
Well, I mean, I just think as a woman, I just immediately discounted it. Like, I don't want to bulk. So, you know.
And you're making my point. So sit over there and look pretty.
Okay.
Okay. Shush.
Okay. Got it.
That's a direct quote from a movie, by the way. I don't really tell her to do that in seriousness. It's a joke. I'm not mean to my wife.
Hey, keep going.
Okay, sorry, off topic. So creatine, it was thought of in the athletic and bodybuilding world for its benefits for muscle building. Okay. In the last year, maybe it's all the rage because all this data that has been studied for 30, 40, 50 years has proven there's no side effect to it. They used to think it damaged the kidneys. They used to think it was hard on the liver. They used to think it made you retain water, but all of that is just a load. And what they're finding is it's not just good for muscle and energy, it's actually good for brain fuel. So all creatine is it's a precursor supplement that helps what's called ATP. So let's do a little kind of biochemistry here, okay? You eat a piece of fruit. The fructose, which is a good fructose because it's from fruit, it's not from high fructose corn syrup like Coca-Cola or Sprite or whatever. That fructose is broken down in your body to glucose. That glucose is now in the blood. It's now pulled into the cell by the insulin, and then it's used as a form of energy. And the dispensable energy that is used is ATP, adenosine triphosphate, okay? 3 phosphate bonds. What creatine does is it helps replace the phosphate bond. And in order to get the recommended amounts of creatine, which is depending on your size, 3 to 5 to 7, even as much as 10 grams a day if you're a really big person, but average person, woman, maybe 3 to 5, somebody my size, 200 and something pounds, 5 to 7 grams. You would have to eat like 13 to 15 steaks. Okay. It's ridiculous. Okay. So it's very safe and it basically just helps fuel that ATP process. It's very safe. And the cool thing about it is it's not just an energy form. It's actually been showing to help with brain function, as we said, cognition, delays of time to fatigue in your brain, delays of time to fatigue in your activity, and then recovery, muscle soreness, and that sort of thing. You can get different forms of it, and I'm not a chemist, so I won't be able to give you all the ins and outs of it, but creatine monohydrate. I take this one through Transparent Labs. Is that creatine? No, that's hydrate. I take this creatine HMB. It's got beta hydroxymethylbutyrate, I believe is what it's called, but it's just the HMB is just an extra. It's a derivative amino acid that basically just helps with all those things I just talked about. It helps with muscle soreness. It helps with delayed times to fatigue. So it's really important for everybody to take because our food system is crap, okay? Unless you're eating pure organic and free range and really healthy, which not everybody is. Again, we're bridging the gap, okay? We're supplementing with supplements. That's what we call them, supplements, because we're not always getting from the food what we need in the system to propagate not just good human function, but optimum human function. I've got a really physically demanding job. I'm not just treating patients. I'm on the ground with them doing exercise. I've got to be mentally sharp throughout my day because it's not like I'm working on a computer all day and I can go, I'm going to take a 15-minute Instagram break. I mean, I'm with patients all day long, so I've got to be fueled and mentally clear. And creatine is a huge part of that for me, and it has been for a long time. And again, no side effects.
Well, and I will say that it's actually fairly known in women.
Okay, that's it. I wanted to lead up to this. So before I get done here, what I'm talking about is on the dude side. And you educated me on something recently that you've been studying for yourself, which is there's a bit of a difference between how men process it and how women process it. So why don't you talk about the whole female side?
Yeah, so especially the monohydrate, which is the most studied and the most readily available, which is the one that has the most data, that particular one tends to have some GI side effects for women, bloating, water retention, fluid retention. So it's not that it can't be managed. It's just that particular dose, the 5-gram dose, a lot of times you have to go slow and let your body work up to that over time. Mm-hmm. I will honestly say it's one of the reasons why I have not taken it in years, because I already have GI problems, and I really wasn't wanting to add to GI distress, quite frankly.
Right.
But I recently have done some research on a newer form of creatine that is, one, known to be a fraction of the dose, but also known to be better on the stomach and not have those side effects of bloating, etc.
So what is it?
Hydrochloride. So it's creatine hydrochloride. So whereas you're talking about monohydrate, this particular form is hydrochloride. Okay. And I'm going to put it's the brand that I'm familiar with is called Concrete, because the guy that actually created it is the scientist that I happen to research. But I'm going to put that link in the show notes.
Okay. So one other thing about creatine, ladies, I get this a lot from women I work with and I've had for years. Right before I start training with them or showing them how to build muscle, they always look at me and go, I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get big. And in my brain, I'm like, oh my goodness. If you, as a female, are going to get big and bulky from exercise, you're going to need to be on every steroid in the book. Okay. Like if you look at, Miss Olympia or female bodybuilders and all that, they're gigantic like that because they're on copious amounts of steroids. Okay. Women who lift weights are just going to get a little bit stronger, just like a guy lifting weight. You don't have enough testosterone in your body as a woman to build all sorts of muscle. All creatine is going to do is it's going to help with your energy. It's going to make you a little bit more mentally sharp. You're going to recover from your workouts better, and your workouts are going to be more energized. That's all you're going to feel from it.
And not be as sore, which means you can go back to the gym the next day and do more.
That's exactly.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those, here's the downside to the hydrochloride is that it's a newer form and it doesn't have as much research behind it. But I do think that will come in time.
Okay.
But I do think it's a nice option for women if they're concerned.
Yeah. And then there's been some controversy about loading phases and all that. When you take creatine for the first time, take the recommended supplementation, drink it down, off you go. There's no need for a loading phase. I mean, that was the research, I didn't even think it was research, but that was the recommendation years and years ago when I started it, when I bought it from, I don't even know where it was, up in Toronto, some meathead store, I'm sure, because, all these nutrition places weren't available back then. But it was, okay, now make sure you load it for 3 weeks, meaning you take triple the dose for 3 weeks. You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's highly absorbable, and you'll get what you need from that first scoop.
And I think really the takeaway for women here is that this is not, one, as we age, you need to be focused on muscle. It is the one thing that you need to make sure you improve and add to. Yep. But also one of the things that as we are in that transition in life and as we get older, the brain fog and the mental acuity and all of that stuff, we talk about that constantly. And that this particular supplement makes a big difference for that.
Huge, huge. And when to take it. Most of the research shows after exercise. I actually put it in my bottle every morning with my electrolytes, and I just kind of sip on it throughout the day. I feel like it absorbs into the ice cubes a little bit, so I'm getting like a little bit dose all day long. But I take it before because it works best for me then. I just feel more mentally sharp. If it feels better for you after a workout, take it after a workout. The point of taking it after a workout is it's repleting everything that you just depleted from the workout.
And I've heard benefit of taking it at bedtime because then it's there for the repair stages overnight. So you want to know my opinion on the best time to take supplements?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Is when you will remember them.
That's a great call.
Because that is probably non-compliance with taking them daily is probably the biggest issue. And so I always say, however you remember to do it daily, that's your best.
So tell everybody what I do before I go to bed every night with my morning supplements.
Lays them all out on a little tissue.
It's because I can make my morning easier because I am a grumpy son of a gun in the morning. I do not like to get out of bed. It's so toasty and you're so warm. I don't want to get out of bed. So when I do, I want as little to do as possible. So I take all my supplements out, put them on a little tissue, and I put them right where I'm going to sit in the morning to have my electrolyte water and tea, and breakfast some mornings. And then when we have dinner and we're making dinner, what do? Same thing, right?
It's a lot of tissues you're wasting.
Take my tissue. I take out all my supplements that I'm going to take with dinner, and then I slide them over to where we eat. And it's a routine, and that's just
you've created that routine, and that is what works for you. What Absolutely. I recommend is that people find something that they do daily.
Right.
You brush your teeth daily. A lot of people drink coffee in the morning. Set the supplements there. Buy the toothpaste or buy, the sink or wherever, something that you do daily so it's a visual cue until you get the habit down.
100%.
And just take it every day.
Yep.
Okay, we have a few more to really mention quickly because we are definitely out of time for today. There's going to be a lot of links for these in the show notes.
Yep.
So make sure you refer to the show notes because we're going to run through these really quick.
And just honesty and disclosure, I work with Transparent Labs, so they give me supplements every month if I advertise them. And I said to them, like I say with every other company that I work, send me some first. If I don't like them, I want to try them. If I don't like them, I'm not going to take them. And also, if there's any crap in them, I'm not taking them. Transparent Labs is transparent. Okay, they only put good ingredients in. They don't put any crap in. I got approached before they came to me 2 years ago with another company, and I was excited to work with them because it was through some military guys that I thought it'd be cool to work with. Well, I looked at their type of protein. It had a high fructose corn syrup, and it had sucralose in it. It had all these metabolic disruptors. I didn't even take it. I threw it in the trash. I have an affiliation to Transparent Labs.
But you take them and you trust them.
I take them and I trust them regularly. Yeah. So if you do purchase them, go to transparentlabs.com, use my code Dr. Rob, you get 10% off. Now, another one I want to mention is Row Nutrition. I just started working with them. Another really cool company, third-party tested, and these are liposomal supplements. And what liposomal supplements mean is their nutrients are bound in a fatty layer. Okay. Just to not bore you hopefully with cellular biology, but every cell in our body has something called a lipid bilayer. Okay. It's an inner and outer layer made up of fat, and that's where all the nutrients basically transport through. Okay. Everything we've been talking about today goes through that lipid bilayer. Row Nutrition has proven, because they are a liposomal supplement, meaning they're fat bounded.
Same with fat soluble vitamins.
Yeah, exactly. So that if this is the cell, this is Row Nutrition supplement. Fat likes fat, so it will go in more easily. And stay in, exactly. Yeah. So collagen. We don't gnaw on bones. We don't gnaw on cartilage the way we used to. I talked about this before. My mother and my grandmother would cook a turkey, cook a chicken, take the carcass, drop it in a massive pot and make soup with it. And all of that good cartilaginous material gets into the soup. Guess what? Now we got cartilaginous rich bone broth that we eat, right? We don't do that anymore. Now, research shows that yes, if you have some osteopenia, osteoporosis, yes, calcium is getting out of the bones, but guess what? There's a huge amount of collagen in bones as well. Guess what our hair is? Guess what our skin is made of? And when you get old and you're losing that turgor in your skin,
the
elasticity, that is collagen. When our bones break down, okay, like in arthritis, that's collagen. So we need to be taking collagen on a daily basis. So I highly recommend Row on that. Transparent Labs also has a collagen supplement, but I've done better with Row's collagen because I feel like it absorbs better for me. You use Transparent Labs in your coffee every morning, so everybody's a little bit different. Yeah. Now, another supplement that everybody should be on is D3 and K2. We have been told for decades now, oh, the sun is bad, don't go outside, put on sunscreen. Well, I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about people who were sick in the hospital that they took outside for daily exposure to sunlight, got out of the hospital twice as fast as the people who were not taken outside.
Yeah.
So the sun, the vitamin D production, vitamin D is really the only nutrient that we can really much really pretty much synthesized in our body without supplementation if we're getting sunshine, right?
Right.
D3 is synthesized through the skin and I believe in the liver through sun, correct? So if you don't get that, if it's winter time and you're living in northern states or in Canada, you need some sort of supplementation with D3. Now, D3 alone isn't going to be enough. You need K2 with it. The reason K2 is important is the K2 helps pull the calcium out of the blood and then push it into the bones. So we used to think forever, your bones are soft or your bones are brittle, you got osteopenia, you need to take calcium. You need D3 and K2 because the K2 is going to take the calcium from your diet and push it into the bones. In the absence of that K2, the calcium is going to stay longer in your bloodstream.
And what does that have to do with why do you have to take it with the vitamin D3? Like, why should you not take just vitamin D3 by itself?
So to answer your question, the D3 and the K2 are synergistic with calcium. Without those two substances, D3 alone is good for your immune system and it will propagate immune function. It'll propagate hormone function. But for the bone mineral side of it, you have to have the D3 and the K2 synergistically to push calcium in the bone for strong bones. Okay. So another hugely important supplement. If people had ample serum vitamin D3 levels, they had a 20 times less likelihood of having an acute event or hospitalization because of that virus. Okay, so hugely important for immune function. Okay, let's move on. It's not really a supplement. It's more, that's the wrong thing. It's kind of is a supplement, but it's more minerals, but we need electrolytes. A lot of research now debunking the whole, you need to drink 64 ounces of water a day. You need to drink 8 glasses of water a day. Well, that was just randomly stated for some reason, like a lot of stuff in the last 30 years. If you just drink 30, 40, 50, 60, 80 ounces of water a day without some sort of mineral to pull it into your cells, guess what you're doing? You're just taxing your kidneys. You're just peeing water out all day. You need some sort of good electrolyte with your water in the morning, specifically, or after a lot of sweating, because first of all, when you're sleeping 7-8 hours, you're not drinking anything. So you're literally waking up dehydrated. So you really want to have a couple of pinches of like a good mineralized salt in your water or something like these electrolytes with your first cup of water in the morning before you even drink your coffee, before you even drink your tea. And then after you've been exercising and sweating, some more supplementation. There's even studies that show as a pre-workout, if you just do a little bit of like Baja Gold sea salt, a pinch of that with your water, you're actually hydrating your cells. So exercise performance is better. So water in and of itself is not enough. And again, there's going to be magnesium in the electrolytes, which again, potentially can help with blood pressure. Again,
I'm not going to discourage people hydrating. I'm not going to debunk the 8-ounce cups a day or anything like that, because 80% of our body is made up of water.
100%.
So I think I want to clarify that you're just saying to make sure we hold on to said fluid in our body, make sure it's paired with the electrolytes.
Right. So at the beginning of the day and then after sweating. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then let's wrap up.
Oh, one more thing. Fish oils.
Yes. Okay, it's the most studied supplement there is.
Okay. I have no affiliation with these guys. I've tried other products, and then Nordic Naturals is one of the best because it's pure. It's got, it's all the third-party testing. I like these because I never burp them up. Yeah. And I've tried so many other fish oil supplements, and I always burp them up. And from what I've read, I don't know if there's any merit to that, but if you burp them up and you get that fishy, gross kind of aftertaste, it means there's some rancidity in the fish oil.
That's what I've always heard as well.
Okay, so I've never experienced that with Nordic Naturals.
All of these, I have links in the show notes. Okay. And then one final one for me is a probiotic. I think everybody should take a daily probiotic just to stay on top of their microbiome.
Yep.
A Garden of Life is a brand that I like that's easy to get a hold of, and that's in the show notes as well. I also included a link for the Juice Plus. in the show notes as well. So this has been a lot of information. We focused predominantly on 3 different things: magnesium, Juice Plus, and the creatine. And then we quickly mentioned some of our other favorites. Again, all of this will be in the show notes because we went through those last ones pretty quickly.
Absolutely. If I just can say one more thing in passing, fish oils, EPA and DHA are the active ingredients. They have really strong anti-inflammatory effects, really strong brain effects. The DHA is supplemental to the myelin sheath, which is the wrapping of the brain, which helps communicate the signals. And it's been shown and helped to improve blood lipid profile. So again, if you're eating a lot of fish, almost daily, you probably don't need this. But honestly, look into fish oil supplementation. Super, super important.
Yeah. Well, I think we hit on all the big ones for us. Clearly, there's just a ton. This industry has exploded. We focused today on our favorites and gave some pretty good information as far as why we think they are our favorites. Again, a lot of information will be in the show notes since we went through that quickly.
And if anybody has any questions, you can DM us on Instagram or the other socials. And we can't get to everybody, but we'll try our best to get to people and just share as much information as we can. So, all right, we're going to wrap that up. Covered a lot. So again, if you have questions, let us know. Until next time, I am Dr. Rob Jones. This is my awesome wife, Shannon. And for episode number 17 of the GBNO show, see you soon and get better, not older.